last year going into the year, you were kind of excited about what Antonio Pierce could bring based on what he ended the season the year prior with the Raiders. Last year kind of was a disaster, and not all Antonio Pierce's fault, but just generally that team was kind of like in shambles. 4-13, 0-6 in the division, but still, even with having that crappy of a year, they still, I mean, what took us to the wire, took us down to the wire twice. The second game, they honestly should have won, and that snap infraction at the end of the game, we ended up barely winning that one. So like they, as bad as they were, they still almost had our number. And I know I say almost, but again, that's the division for you. And just in general, before we kind of take a look at where they are and where they've kind of changed up as far as their key additions. What did you
Yeah.
see from the Raiders last year? I know the bad team record wise, but they still gave us fits.
Oh man. So what did I see from the Raiders last year? It was a team that was struggling, trying to find its identity, especially once they thought they actually had acquired one with Antonio Pierce. Right? They wanted to do it the right away and kind of hit guys in the mouth, and they kind of fell short. It fell short. A lot of that had to do with quarterback play, right? Not only that, but also Devontae Adams not playing as much. That kind of hurt him a lot. Brock Bowers was a bright spot for them. And so sometimes their defense didn't quite hold up. But that's what I saw. I saw a team struggling to actually really pin down who they were. And they couldn't really establish anything because they had, obviously we got him now, Mr. Mustache here with us, and Aiden O'Connell. So this is going to be a different era. Pete Carroll, we know this. Geno Smith is an incredible quarterback. Jacoby Myers has been playing tops. He's going to be one of the receivers you need to watch this year. Not to mention they got Ojiti in the draft. They're going to be toting a rock with that guy every chance they get. So they're going to be a more formidable foe this year for us. And so I think with the addition of Geno Smith and Pete Carroll, I do believe that those guys are they're going to change everything up, man. We're going to see it differently. Andrew, thank you, my brother. Good seeing you too, man. He's one of the guys that was on the show. Yes, sir. So yes, that's what I've seen from this team last year, man. It was really a struggle to find who they were.
But the one thing I will say about this team, which is interesting, is usually when teams come in and new regimes come in, they fire the whole staff. The one guy that's been kept around through Pierce, from McDaniels to Pierce to now Carroll, is the defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham. I mean, he gave us fits when he was the Giants DC, when we had that Monday night game against them a couple years back. I mean, that game was kind of a struggle. And then now we're talking about the last year being able to all these games he played against the Raiders, going back to the Christmas Day game a couple years ago, and then last year. I mean, I don't know what he's doing against our team that he does so well, but they kept him on for a reason. And that's one guy I will say it is interesting for a really crappy team to keep on defensive coordinator despite all that. And I mean, that's one guy who's had our number, I will say.
Yeah. Well, I think you think about consistency, right? And I think where they were lacking was the consistency on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, they did a pretty good job. They know they got Max Crosby, who gives us fits every chance he gets. He's always up in Patrick's face anytime he plays them. And so we know that their defense is always going to be somewhat of a solid crew that they have. They had a ton of draft picks this past year too, Marcus. So they got guys in. And maybe the style of what they play, they loved. Maybe they just felt like what they were able to give against the Chiefs, they needed. And so they gave us some tough games. They did defensively. And so what will probably help you out is have a guy that is familiar with Patrick Mahomes, right? You've seen every trick that he's been able to do, almost. We don't know. Patrick is, he's a magician, so you ain't seen everyone, right? But you kind of know his MO. You know what Andy Reid likes to run, him and Matt Nagy. You know the players that you're going against. Obviously, Travis Kelce, Andre Pacheco, Kareem Hunt. Then we're talking about Xavier Worthy, Rashid Rice, then Hollywood Brown. So what they're going to be doing defensively is something that I wouldn't say been successful, but it's been enough to be like a thorn in our side. So I think for them, if you have a good defense coordinator, you don't want to let a guy go, right? Especially guys around there know what they're expecting out of you.
And I find it funny too because we talked about how they kind of beat us with that cage rush. Patrick Graham loved doing that with the cage rush. Jerry Tillery is now on our squad. He was a former Raider with Patrick Graham, and then Janarius Robinson, now a Chief as well, another former Raider. So they provided a lot of problems for us. So it's going to be interesting to see that we've taken some of those guys from that defensive line that kind of gave us fits. Obviously not Max Crosby, but still guys who did give us fits in those games.
Yeah, for sure. So that's one, like I said before, if a team can hold on to something that's consistent, that has been doing a decent job, I think it was probably the direction they needed to go. So you bring in Pete Carroll, right? You start building an offense around Geno Smith. You get him a running back that was the number one running back coming out in the draft. And then what you're doing is, hey, let's just go play some ball. And so like when I was talking to Mark and Andrew earlier, I was just saying that what we've seen in the AFC West, and the Raiders obviously has built this up as well, is they've done everything in their power to stop the Chiefs, right? Play the best team in that division, play the best team that's in the NFL, and the Chiefs, we lord over everything, over everybody. So.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned some of the new guys they brought in here. I think with the next page is okay. So these are key losses from the Raiders from last year. Honestly, not a lot to be kind of like as far as big impact guys. Spillane and Diablo were pretty good for them, as well as Morig. But yeah, Janarius Robinson is now a Chief. Nonetheless, I mean, the linebackers it's a big shift for them as far as they lost last year. But when you look at this key losses, I mean, does anything here stand out? Like, oh man, that's going to be a big loss for them. For me, I don't. Spillane was pretty good for them. That's probably the only one I would say that's the big deal for them on these as far as departures.
Yeah, I was going to say probably Spillane. Marcus Epps was kind of up and down on those things. Antonio Pierce, him moving into the head coaching position, he still would have been great on the staff in some capacity. I don't know if Pete reached out to him. I'm sure he did in some way, in some form. I just don't know if Antonio was ready for something like that right after he become the head coach and then kind of being demoted and being on the same team. Now, certain guys can handle it. I don't know quite how that all, played out. But as far as everything else and everybody here on this list, man, nobody really stands out as far as like, oh man, that's a key guy. I do agree with you that Robert Spillane was the animal out there. He did a tremendous job for him last year.
And I think he went to Buffalo, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh wow. Okay. Jeez. It's a good acquisition for them then.
No, sorry, went to New England. Sorry, Mike Vrabel brought me. That's a good New England guy.
Well, so he went from one team, hard team, to struggling team to another.
Yeah, but and things he goes from one former linebacker, Antonio Pierce, to another linebacker, Mike Vrabel. So he gets that kind of continuity as far as having a former player be his coach.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.